This creamy red bell pepper and mushroom pasta is one of my favorites. But if I'm honest, I really don't like mushrooms all too much. But this pasta dish has single-handedly taught me to appreciate all the delicious flavors that mushrooms can bring. So if you don't like mushrooms, or you know someone who doesn't like mushrooms, don't worry because there's still hope yet. And I think this pasta dish will be a great introduction to the joy of cooking with mushrooms.
To get started, place a medium-sized chicken breast in between a sheet of parchment paper or plastic wrap, and then use a heavy bottom pot to pound it out flat. When the chicken has a relatively even thickness, season both sides with kosher salt, freshly ground black pepper, and paprika. If you have time, it'd be good to dry brine it in the fridge for 2 or more hours to help enhance the flavor and browning. To cook the chicken, preheat a large saucepan over medium-high heat, and when you think it's warm, flick in a couple drops of water. The water should kind of dance around in the pan, indicating that it's the perfect temperature. Add in some olive oil in the center of the pan and then lay in the chicken. Just leave it alone to cook on the first side, and when a crust is formed, the chicken should naturally release itself from the pan. After a little bit of prying on the edges, you should be able to turn the chicken over with the crust intact. Cook the chicken on the second side until it also has a nice brown crust. When the second side is brown or the chicken has reached an internal temperature of 165 Fahrenheit, you can turn off the heat and remove the chicken from the pan. Let the chicken breast rest for at least 5 minutes before cutting it into thin slices. I find that if you cut using a sawing motion and on a bias, the chicken is less likely to shred. The chicken breast should have an amazing crust, but the inside of the meat should still be juicy. After slicing your chicken breast, you can cover it with foil to keep it warm while we prepare the rest of the ingredients. To prepare the vegetables, grab the smallest yellow onion you can find and give it a medium dice. For the mushrooms, several varieties will work, but today I'm going to use your standard white button mushroom. I found that cutting them into thirds or quarters will yield the perfect size. They might seem a little chunky now, but mushrooms are around 90% water. And you don't want to cut them down too small because if you do, they're going to end up completely disappearing into the sauce. Which may actually be a good thing if you're just learning to eat mushrooms. So experiment with the size of your mushroom slices as you wish. For the red bell pepper, cut it in half and then remove the core and seeds. With the skin side down, cut the bell pepper into thin slices. When done prepping all of the vegetables, head back over to the stove where we have a pot of boiling water. Season with salt and add in 6 ounces or 170 grams of dry penne and boil until tender. If you don't have any penne on hand, you can also substitute in fettuccine. In the same pan that we cooked the chicken, drizzle in a couple tablespoons of olive oil. Heat the pan over medium heat, and when the oil is shimmering, add in the diced onion. After a minute or so of sauteing the onion, add in 5 cloves of freshly minced garlic, and then continue sauteing the onion and garlic until you notice that some of the garlic is starting to brown. Then add in 2 tablespoons of butter, and then quickly start scraping the bottom of the pan. The water and the butter will help deglaze some of the fond that has formed. After a few seconds of scraping, add in the sliced mushrooms. As you saute the mushrooms, continue scraping the fond because the water in the mushrooms will help further deglaze the pan. After a couple minutes of cooking the mushrooms, you may notice that the pan has become quite dry, and this is because the mushrooms have soaked up all of the oil like a sponge. If this happens, just add in a tablespoon or 2 of more olive oil. After 4 to 5 minutes of sauteing the mushrooms, they should be tender and have a little bit of browning. Add in the sliced bell peppers, and they should give you the last bit of moisture you need to fully deglaze the pan. Things are looking like they need just a little bit more lubrication, so I'm going to add in a touch more olive oil and some paprika. Paprika adds a mild sweetness and some color to the final sauce. After about 6 to 7 minutes, the red bell peppers should be tender, at which point you can add back in the sliced chicken and follow that up with 480 grams or 2 cups of heavy cream. With the heat still over medium, bring the sauce up to a simmer. As it heats up, stir the sauce gently, and eventually all of the oil will emulsify into the cream. When the sauce reaches a simmer, reduce the heat to low, and continue cooking the sauce for about 4 to 6 minutes or until it has thickened. When the sauce is thickened, reduce the heat to its lowest setting and add in 100 grams of freshly grated parmesan. You want to finely grate your cheese so that way it can easily emulsify into the sauce. You can also add in half a teaspoon of dried basil and some freshly ground black pepper. Stir the cheese into the sauce, and when it has fully emulsified, taste for salt and adjust as needed. The sauce should be slightly too strong to help balance out the undersalted pasta. When satisfied with the seasoning of the sauce, add in the drained pasta. So when I said that this pasta has taught me how to appreciate mushrooms, I really did mean it. They bring lots of umami flavor, and they absorb flavors like a sponge. But what it really comes down to is how you cook them. Once you have that figured out, they will start to become a staple in your kitchen. Aside from the mushrooms, another thing I found is that creamy pasta dishes, which have a lot of heavy cream, but only a small amount of cheese, are much more forgiving on your digestive system than pastas with high amounts of cheese. So if you love creamy pastas, but don't want to feel like you have a 5-pound weight sitting in your stomach, then this one is for you. I could probably eat this every week without getting tired of it. It can be prepped and ready within 30 minutes, so in addition to tasting amazing, it's also great to make on a weeknight. This creamy red bell pepper and mushroom pasta is currently my favorite pasta dish I've ever had, and I really hope you give it a try soon.